Well, welcome to our November monthly planning call. If you can believe it, we are here already at the start of another month to start looking ahead at what's coming up. I feel like my necklaces are turning on me. There we go. And one of the things that you guys are going to love when you get the planner, I can't wait because maybe by the next month's call, we will have planners in hand but they have to get to me and then I have to ship them out. So we will see how the timeline flows or whatever. But one of the things that's in the planner, and I was showing this to some people earlier, on the monthly spreads, at the bottom, I don't know if you can see this, it says added to a monthly CEO praise report, Y or N. So I'm going to prompt you each week to be adding to your praise report. So that way, when you come on a call like this and you're like, oh, what was my month like? What did God do? You're just going to flip to show you what it looks like your monthly CEO praise report, and you're going to have it broken down by week one, week two, week three, week four. Like this is what this is what I'm remembering. So I think that'll be really fun. But I would love to hear while we're just kind of waiting to see if anybody else pops on, whether you want to put it in the chat or whether you want to say it out loud. What is something that you're praising for from the month of October?
I'm grateful for the adoptions that we had
Mm.
and the donations that we received.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know, Mary, that Nikki has like a nonprofit for adopting cats and
Oh,
getting them
cool.
spayed and neutered and things like that. So she keeps them until somebody adopts them. So yes, them getting adopted is a good thing. It's one less mouth to feed and furry friend to chase around and things like that.
Oh, that's so great. I'll have to tell my daughter about that. She is such an animal lover, so
Oh, fun.
she'll love that.
Yeah,
hmm
she's
Where
got
does
a
she live?
mobile.
Well, we're in Texas. She lives in San Marcos. We live in
Okay.
Austin.
Austin. Ooh,
hmm
Austin's a beautiful place.
Yeah, love it. Love it. What are you celebrating this month, Mary? What have you seen God do in the past month? You said it was a good month.
I think this sounds maybe not what we're looking for, but to me, it's really big. Is I don't feel discouraged as I
Mm,
was looking over, like I said, the sheet from last month. No, I did not hit everything that I wanted to hit by a long shot, but I felt like I just kept going.
I
And
love it.
there have been times when, I mean, I always keep going, of course, like we all do, but I didn't feel that, oh, well,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not making any progress.
Mary, that's huge, right? Because the enemy would love to keep us discouraged and over here, kind of going in our own little circles or, licking our wounds and things like that and making us feel bad about things. So I think that's a great thing to praise. And I think that's a huge win. And here's where I often talk with my CEOs about this. We have a choice. We can focus on the gap, how far we are from where we wanted to be, or we can focus on the gain, right? The steps we did take in the direction towards where we wanted to be. And yeah, one of them is going to help spur on more in that direction, and one of them probably will make us not feel so great about where we
Mhm.
are in relation to that direction. So yeah, just something to remember. Am I focusing on the gap or am I focusing on the gain? And how do I, do that? Because it's not about productivity. It's not just about hitting the goals or checking the boxes and things like that. Now, if those were important things that you knew you needed to do and you put it off so you could go binge Netflix or, something else, that's a whole nother story. But sometimes, right, life happens or things change or whatever. And so, yeah, it doesn't always turn out exactly the way we planned. And that's okay. That's okay, right? Yeah. But going into the month of the plan, hopefully you're seeing that more things happen than don't happen when you go into a month without some kind of a plan. So that's the goal of what we're doing tonight. So I wanted to share something with you guys. You may have seen this because I did a live inside the community and also on Facebook about this, but just a really good perspective check that the Lord gave me last week. I was sitting on the back deck. Wait, my husband was literally en route home from surgery. His friend had taken him, picked him up at 4:30 in the morning for me, so I didn't have to be the one to go to St. Louis for the day, which was a huge blessing. And then was driving him home, and all of a sudden it hit me. My husband just had shoulder surgery. I have to be his right hand. Like I literally have to do like all the things for him, and I'm trying to get the planner ready and all the back end stuff and things that are happening here and all that. And so there was kind of this like, all of a sudden, this like overwhelm and like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm strong enough to do this. And so I was like, Lord, I'm gonna need you to speak into this. And I took one of the tools that is in the planner. So if you haven't used it yet, my CEOs know what it is, but if you haven't used it, it's called the steer belief map. And we get our thought, take our thoughts captive. I've done some episodes on this in the podcast because otherwise those thoughts keep swirling, and the more they keep swirling up here, the more we believe them, and then it leads to how we feel about them, and then it leads to what we do or don't do, and then we're off in left field, and wondering why we're not going right. So anyway, I was like, okay, Lord, like I need something from you on this. And he brought me to Isaiah 41, verse 10, which said, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." And it was just that reminder. Even though, yes, I was literally going to, need to be a right hand for my husband, that God is our right hand, and no matter what is in our hands, no matter what is coming up, no matter what, whether it was on the plan or not, he is with us. He is our God. He will help us and strengthen us and uphold us with his hand, his righteous right hand, which is way better than my right hand, So it was just such a good reminder. I'm like, Lord, aren't you good? Like, in just exactly what I needed to hear and exactly connected to a right hand, and all of that as well. And so I just, yeah, as we look at the next month, I mean, we're starting to head into the holiday season. So it can be a little like, especially if you're traveling or you're hosting or, there are other things going on and you're trying to, work in work or business or ministry things around all of these other things that start coming up. It can be a little overwhelming, a little bit like, how can I do all this? My hands can only hold so much. And so I just want to start today just with that reminder that he is our right hand. And so this isn't about what we can do, but it's about what he can do. So all right. Well, let me do this. Let me pray over us first, because I think it'll be good. Just we're always coming in with whatever's on our heads and hearts from the day, the week, the month, the year, right? And so let's just pray that he'll meet us here and give us some eyes to see today. So, Lord, thank you for this time. God, we thank you for the gift of time. We thank you for what you have been doing in this past month. And I pray that you will continue to bring those things back into remembrance so that we don't miss them and we don't forget them. And I pray that you would open our eyes for what you are wanting to do in this next month ahead of us. And as we go through this process of planning with you, help us to remember to be open-handed and not close-fisted, like it all depends on us, or like we have to hold everything together to make it work. But help us to remember that you are a righteous right hand and that you are with us and that you will strengthen us and that you will give us all that we need for what you've called us to. So we pray your blessing over our time tonight. They'll give us wisdom and discernment, and then be with us as we walk into the month ahead of us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
No.
Well, before we do, just in case you didn't know, tomorrow night, the 29th at 6 p.m. Central, so same time, I'm doing our live reveal on the Redeem Her Time Facebook business page. So that's where I'm going to kind of like go through a tour on the inside, kind of share the heart around it. Like to this point, I've showed little bits and pieces, or I've talked with you guys about things and stuff like that. But other than my launch team, nobody has really seen like all the goods that are in there. So that's happening tomorrow at 6 p.m. So you're welcome to come live or catch the replay afterwards and things like that. But I'll be taking you guys in there. And 2 weeks from tomorrow is launch day on November 12th. And there are launch day discounts happening. There are also launch day drawings. You can win. I've got some surprise prizes that'll go out with some orders. Just I'll randomly pick orders to throw them in. There'll be some Amazon gift cards that go out, and there will be a VIP coaching day that goes out as well. So yeah, some fun things. So, make sure you're marking your calendar, be watching inside the community or your email or social, where I'll be talking about what the launch day code is when we get closer. And then think about who you know that would love to have a tool like this. And here's the cool thing. This is not just, and I'll talk a bit more about this tomorrow night. It's not going to spend much time on this, but I've been putting a lot of hours and a lot of time and a lot of prayer into the digital course that goes with it. And that's free. And so like, I really want someone to pick up this tool and have it not just rightly order their calendar, but have it rightly order their heart. And really be able to shift the way that they approach time and really have these tools and see the purpose behind them and not just filling in blanks or checking boxes, and things like that, but really like, and it's all tied into scripture and, what God has called us to. And so that it's just been really fun to pour all that, put all that together. So again, this is for, any busy Christian woman who wants to be intentional with her time. She could have a business, or she could be working or have a ministry, or just wanting to be intentional with her time. The planner is not specific to business type things, but it can be used in all kinds of settings and things like that. So that would be a huge favor. Is just like, who do you know? Like maybe think of like 1, 2, or 3 people to be like, hey, here's something that I've been watching. I thought you might be interested in, or send them a podcast episode, or invite them to the community, or send them a link, share one of the posts on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, so that we can get the word out there and help more women to shift how they approach time because we all know what it's like to be on the other side of it, where we are telling ourselves all day long we don't have time and there's never enough and we're not doing enough and all the things that go in our head. So I need you guys to help me kind of start putting that stuff out there. So, all right, well let us jump into what we're doing here today. I'm kind of trying to because I'm thinking through how I want to do this, and I thought through it before we got on, but now I'm kind of thinking rethinking it again. In the planner, there is a brain dump section, so that you can kind of get all the stuff that's in your head about the month ahead of you, down on paper. So I think we're going to start with that first, because sometimes we have to get it out of here so we can see it, and then we can start doing things with it. So it's 6:12 on my clock here. So I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes. Okay, I think that should be plenty of time. This is an opportunity for you to brain dump all the things that are coming to your mind for the next month. It can be as little as I need to remember to pick up more kitty litter, or it can be, oh my goodness, I'm going on a trip and I better make sure I pay attention to, reach out to the dog sitter, or it could be, hosting Thanksgiving or whatever. But I feel like there's a lot ahead of us in this next month. And so I want to kind of start by clearing a lot of stuff out of our brain. So if you need, you can do it on the back. If you've got the Planning with God sheet, you can do it on the back of this. Does anyone need the link for this? Okay. If you do, just shout out and then I'll put in there. So you can, just kind of simply do it on the back. But now we're down to 4 minutes. Brain dump all the things that are coming to your head right now. And you may want a calendar in front of you so you can kind of look ahead at what's happening. But let's start getting stuff out of our head and down on paper because it doesn't need to live in our heads. That's sometimes the worst place for it to be. Takes up too much space from other things. Make sure voting is somewhere on your calendar if you haven't done it yet. Just my reminder as I'm looking at election day stuff on my calendar. Okay. I feel like we've gotten some stuff out of here and down on here. Sometimes we, again, it's all the little things. We're like, okay, I gotta remember this, or don't forget this, or then, for me, sometimes it's a ripple effect. Oh yeah, this is happening, which means this has to happen, which means this has to happen, and it's kind of the domino thing. Here's one pro tip. Ready for this? If there is something that is recurring, which means it's not just a one-time thing, like a one and done, and I don't think about it again. Like vote is a check the box thing. I don't have to think about it till next year, right? But there may be certain things that you are finding, oh yeah, I'm trying to remember these things. Always pay attention to, is this recurring? Because I believe if it's recurring, and I think like probably 90% of the things we do are recurring, then it should live in a routine, not on a to-do list. Because I was just having a conversation with someone today inside the community where like things keep getting added to the to-do list and then there's not time for it all. And then like it gets moved to tomorrow and there's not time for it to begin with, but it just keeps adding to the list. You know how that feels, right?
Mhm.
So pay attention as you're doing things, especially as you're planning out the month or as you're planning out a week. Hey, is this the only time I ever have to do this? Like, or is this something that's kind of that this is happening the first week of every month, or maybe it's happening every week of the month, or pay attention to some of those things because then I would say let's create a routine around it instead of it just being something that you're trying to remember or stick on a to-do list because that takes up more space. So all right. Well, let's start now. Now that we kind of get that stuff out of our head with our Selah breath. In fact, I was just recorded a podcast today where I was talking about Selah and how that is creating margin in our heads and in our hearts so that our souls can catch up with everything that's been going on. And so I think you'll like the story that I have to share. But we'll take a minute and take just a minute to kind of pause now that stuff's out of your head and on paper and, is there something that the Lord is speaking to you, wants you to hear, wants you to remember, wants to say? Maybe it's just quiet. Maybe there's a word. Maybe there's a phrase or a scripture or something like that that comes to mind. But just take a minute to just let go of all the stuff you wrote down and all the other stuff you were doing or thinking about before you came on and see if there's something that God's saying to you as you're heading into this time. Okay, that is our pause. And then we head into our position, which is kind of paying attention to where we are right now in relation to what we're wanting to keep us anchored. Did you guys hear the podcast episode on Thursday with Jenny Fulford about naming your year? I don't know if you listened to it. If you didn't, it was a really powerful, it's a longer conversation. So stick it in when you're driving or cleaning or something like that. But she has created, I don't have it here. I just actually was working on it the other day, yesterday morning, but she's created a journal called the Name Your Year Journal. And the whole idea is around centering it around a word, right? Like a word that is your anchor. It's that word that you keep coming back to. It's that word that keeps you connected to what you feel like God is leading you towards. Listen to that conversation, grab the free guide that there's a link to in the show notes because it is super helpful in thinking through things she has you like reflecting back on this past year and kind of looking for some things that God was doing and things like that, looking ahead at the next year. And she walks you through this process of how to hear from God and how to choose a word of the year. And then if you want to grab the journal, it's this beautiful experience that helps you stay connected to the year. But I told her, I said, in our monthly planning, we come back to our word right? All the time because so often we forget, right? Like, oh yeah, this is my word. And then how many of us were like, in fact, I don't know for sure. I was thinking I was going to do a different word this year when I was talking to her. And as I was working through her stuff this weekend, I felt like the word that I had for this year, which was fruitful, I have not given it the time and attention that I really wanted to. And so I think I might hang on to that and use her resources to stay connected to it, to keep it top of mind. But at least, at the very least, this is the place for coming back to that word. So if you already have a word for the year, some people choose a different word each month, and that's fine too. I'm not saying there's one right way or wrong way or things like that, or maybe you just had to pick a word right now. What would that word be that you would want to really be that anchor and that guidepost for you? Write that down. And then scale of 1 to 10, how aligned Do you feel like you are to that word? Don't shoulda, woulda, coulda. Don't, I'm a two and I really should be a nine and woe is me. And no, this is just for you checking in. Have I been keeping this word in front of me? Have I really been intentionally moving in this direction? Or is this a word that's like way on the other side of where I am right now? And God can get us from a one to a nine, that fast, right? He can compress time and make things happen. But it's just a good way of checking in with where we are. So what's your word and where do you feel like you are in alignment when it comes to that word right now? This is one that would be fun to hear if anyone is willing to share what word it is that is whether it's been around for a while or whether it's something new for this month. What is that word that you're keeping out in front of you? Oh, sorry, Nadine.
Consistency.
Consistency. I like that. Yeah. Nadine, that link is coming. Sorry, I didn't see your message there. So there you go. Sorry, it was like 10 minutes ago.
No
Yell at
worries,
me.
no worries.
I gotta
Yeah,
yell at
no
me.
worries.
Hey, Lisa, I dropped something in the chat because, yeah,
No
yeah.
worries. I'll share about my word. My word for 2024 was expand.
Mm,
And when I rated where I'm at with expand, I would say a five. But
hmm
the word prune also came up as I was rating myself a five because I'm learning that in order to expand, sometimes you have to prune some things. So I think I
mm,
may be in a process of pruning in order to expand. So it may
yeah.
not feel like expansion is fully there yet because of all the pruning this year, but the word is still expand, right?
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And maybe we have a different definition than God does, or we're just looking at one version of it. So I love that, how you're kind of putting a different perspective on that. And that definitely prune goes with my word of fruitful, because there is, in order for a vine to be more fruitful, it has to be pruned to get rid of some of the excess and things like that. Even if they are healthy branches, sometimes it's just there's too much and something has to go so that way it can be more fruitful. So I love that. I love that. I've rated mine myself as a six on fruitful right now. I feel like I'm planting a lot of seeds, and I'm expectant of the fruit that's coming. But I'm in that like season of like the stuff is planted, and I'm in that time in between the planting and the harvesting, and just trusting that God is going to bring that harvest with all the things that have been planted. So yeah. Anyone else want to share? I don't want to cut you off, but you don't have to share either. So.
Well, I picked mine last month and it's a reset.
Mm,
And I gave myself the same I did last month, a five. Um, I definitely am seeing it play out at work.
mm,
I've been so overwhelmed at work with this job that I've actually been in for the last 3 years, but it just, yeah. So it sometimes I think it's easier to measure things at work though than it
mm.
is at home.
True. Very true.
And I'm not joking about this, but it does sound sort of silly. When we were doing Sailor time, the word that popped into my mind was oranges because I
Ah,
listened to the podcast
I was gonna
today.
say.
Yeah,
I got my
and so
oranges. No,
I was like,
I was totally like I hadn't listened back to it, and so when I listened to the podcast today, you couldn't hear me pouring the Skittles. I mean, it was so loud. I was like, I hope this doesn't drive the people on the podcast crazy. That's why I made a comment about like I hope it's okay. So I'm going to do a Facebook Live on Wednesday, and I will actually pour it so you can hear it. And yeah, but those oranges are the important things, right? Maybe that's just God's reminder of put the oranges in first because
yeah.
like we said today, your order determines the capacity for what is going to fit in there. When the Skittles go in, yeah, there's not space for it all. So I will do that on video. It is on YouTube if you want to go watch it there, but I will do a video of just that piece because it's really cool to watch and see like how does that work? Like when you put the Skittles in first, there's not room for the oranges, but you put the oranges in first and there's room for that and all the Skittles. I did have to go buy more because we have these neighbor kids that we help our friend out with, and he always wants my Skittles. And I went to go do it, and I was like, I don't have enough Skittles to like make this work. So I had to go to the store and buy more Skittles. So I'm
Well,
like,
be careful, Halloween's coming up, so
I know,
they
right?
disappeared.
Exactly, exactly. Well, it's up on a high shelf now, so he can't just come in and help himself when he comes to my house. So anyway, but that's fine. That's fine. All right, well, let's move on to patterns. Okay, here's where we're again kind of big picture noticing, because here's the thing, and this is, I think, something God's really impressed on me in the past month is you guys right now are doing what most people don't and won't, and that is pushing pause and all the doing, or wasting time on the couch, scrolling something right now, right? In order to really look at your time and the fruit of your time, the ROI, right? Like what are the results of how I'm spending my time? And so like this, even this whole thing, like how many people stop and look at like, yeah, what patterns am I noticing lately in my life? Like what things am I doing on repeat that either are taking me in the right direction or not taking me in the right direction? Or what things could I be doing? So I just want to give you guys a shout out because this is makes a difference and really helps us to pay attention to where our time is going, which will make a difference in where we end up going because where we are right now is the consequence, good, bad, or indifferent, of the way we've chosen to use time up until now, right? And then where we're going to be a month from now will also be the consequence of how we've chosen to spend our time. So take a minute and just kind of reflect on this patterns question. Notice your habits, things you're doing on repeat. Okay. What are things that you will commence, AKA start? What are things that you will continue, which means this is a good thing. I want to keep this going. And what are things that you want to cease? And maybe sometimes you've got something under each category. Maybe you have a couple under one and nothing under another. That's okay. I just want you to at least think through each one of those and notice what might be some patterns that have been happening, so that we can either continue that pattern or make it not a pattern anymore. Sometimes it feels like a little thing, but those little things do add up and have a compound effect in both directions. Anything anyone wants to share? Completely up to you. Could be one of those categories, could be all three. I moved one over to a different category, so I can't put under two.
I'll share.
Go ahead.
I'll share from one category, which is the cease category or stop.
Mhm.
I've been attending a networking group for over a year, maybe 2 years now. Really love connecting with the individuals, but when I look at my ROI,
Mm.
it has not been fruitful for my business, and it is a business networking group. So I made the decision that starting 2025, I'm going to cease attending that group, and I've slowed down to once a month.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Good choices. Yeah. And here's where, again, this is why this work is so valuable because we don't ever stop to pay attention to the result or the ROI on where we've been investing time. Then we keep doing the same thing and getting the same result, right? Definition of insanity, and wonder why nothing's changing or why we're not growing or why we don't have time or whatever. So I love that. Good. Nikki, I like yours to continue with church and Bible study. Those are great, great things. Yes, yes. Love that. I've been reading in the mornings because sometimes I've noticed when my husband's around in the evenings, sometimes I do or don't get my reading in either because we're having a conversation or watching something or talking or things like that. And then I found it felt like I was not getting in that time that I wanted to. And so doing it in the morning has been a really helpful thing because either he's already at work or he's still in bed. So I'm a morning girl. I love to get up and have that time with the Lord when it's quiet. And so I've been even just 10 minutes a day. It's like I've been ahead of the game with what I need to be reading. So I'm like, oh wow, what else can I read? Because I'm ahead of where I need to be. So that's one that I will continue as well. Sees my Shopify store. Okay. Yeah. Is that cat stuff you were selling, that dog cat stuff, Nikki? Or okay. Yeah. Sometimes it's not worth it, right? All right, let's look at priorities. In the planner, each season, I'm going to have us go through the eight. We're going to create what's called the top eight. So we're going to pick one habit or routine or rhythm or something like that in each category just to keep us balanced and growing and stuff like that. So that this page will look a little bit different when it's in the planner because there'll be a whole page dedicated to that. But here's where we go. Okay, right now I want to pay attention. And I don't know if you guys have taken the balance assessment. So one of the little teasers I've done for the planner has been to pull out the balance assessment tool so that people can, use this tool to really kind of assess the 8 areas. Where are they? And what might need some time and attention. So if you haven't grabbed it yet, let me drop that link in the comments. It's just redeemertime.com/assessment. And there's a little coaching video that goes with it as well. But so that could be a helpful tool to say where would I start out of these 8? Or, for time's sake right now, I would just say pick one or two that you think are going to make the biggest difference in this next month. Okay, so it may be one area that you know I'm probably already a little bit low in and I need to put a little bit more time and intention in this one. Or it might be one that you're like, you know what? Knowing what this month holds, this is one that I want to make sure that I'm prioritizing and I'm doing this thing. So the goal is to write one thing, not more than one, in that box that you will commit to doing. So whether that's, a rhythm, which is kind of like just this regular pattern, right? You could maybe you want to call it a habit or routine, and just those are just different versions of the same thing, depending on how big they are. But start with their top one or two, and if there's time, I'll give us about 3 or 4 minutes. If there's time, you're welcome to go on to some other of those categories. But let's start with our next one or two. And what's one thing in that category that you want to make sure to do this next month? And like I said, you might have time for more than two, and that's fine. But I don't want you to feel like you have to do more than two because sometimes it can feel like too much. Anyone want to share a priority for this next month for one of those categories or two? What's needing or wanting your attention this month?
Well, for me, this is just a continuation of last month. Since we're getting ready to remodel our house, it's, I don't want to say downsizing exactly, but I'm calling it things to move out.
I love it.
hmm
Yeah. Which
Yeah,
creates space,
it
less to
does.
clean, less to care for, less to clutter, and kind of creates a spacious feel. So I love that.
It
Good.
makes it also, there's some momentum to it. Once you start doing it, it frees up. Yeah, and it moves
Yeah,
a little faster.
exactly. Exactly. I love it.
I have the hospice angels to create for hospice that I volunteer for, to go up on the tree at the hospital
Mm,
in December. So
yeah.
we got to get those done.
Yep. Yep. And here's the pro tip. When there's something that's a priority, like either one of those things or anything else that's on there, if it doesn't have a when it's happening, it's probably not going to happen, or it's gonna be one of those things that it just keeps getting pushed off until like you get to the ultimate moment when it absolutely has to be done. So I would highly encourage to put that on your plan for this month and decide based on what you know thus far, right? When am I going to give this time? And yes, it may need to move, but that's the beauty of if you put it closer to the beginning of the month, then there's space for it to adjust if it needs to. But yeah, a mentor of mine used to always say, a dream without a plan is just a wish. And so if you don't have a plan as to when it's happening, well, guess what? It's going to live on that should do list for a long time and bear and weigh you down. So good,
Yeah.
good. All right, our next category is our plans. So here is where, and again, in the planner, I love this because everything's going to be in one place. It's going to be really, really nice because each season I'm going to take you through a process of creating a 12-week plan for the 3 months that are ahead. So when we get to this part, it's just going to be literally flipping back to the current one we're on and saying, okay, where am I right now? Right. But what I want you to think about is if you already have a plan, great, you've got something to go back to. But maybe like for you, Mary, so say, for example, you're, trying to get things ready. It can be very overwhelming to do an entire house and, kind of, clear things out, move things out, however you called it. So what might be helpful is to break it down into quadrants or categories, rooms or things like that, and kind of, spread it out over the next month or the next 2 months or the next 3 months. And then it kind of gives you a way to go, okay, I don't have to worry about it all today, but here's the one area that I'm focusing on this week or this month. And so that way, then your time and attention goes there. And then, like you said, it often has a ripple effect that builds momentum for other areas. So,
That's good.
yeah, so I'll give you a few minutes to, check that out if you have one. If you don't have a 12-week plan that's already created, that's okay. Just decide like what is a milestone you would like to hit in some area in this next month. So identify that milestone, and then say, okay, if I were to break that down into 4 weekly targets, what would that look like? And then maybe what are some of the smaller tasks that would need to happen in order for this to be completed by the end of the month, right? Or in order to get to this next milestone, if it's something that's going to take longer than a month. So I'll give you a minute to, a couple minutes to kind of look at that, either check in with your current plan or to kind of create a quick little mini one for this month or for the next 2 months about what you would like to see happen. So that way we can start kind of breaking that up a little bit. Plan. Anyone want to share what you're working towards this month, whether it's part of a bigger plan or it's kind of a standalone on its own? What's that monthly milestone for you? I'll tell you mine is getting this planner out in the world. So I'm finishing up the digital course. I was just checking my list to see how many more videos I need to create. So I think I'm down to the last four of that. And then making sure that all the back end stuff works so that when people go to check out, it actually does what it's supposed to do and sends people in the right direction and things like that. So that's a lot of it. And then I've got an event coming up in December. So after that launch hits, then the second half will be working towards what that virtual event is going to be. I would not be able to keep it all on track if I didn't have a 12-week plan that I keep going back to. So this is huge. All right, next place we're going to look is our preview. Here's where we actually get into the calendar stuff and we go, okay, what things are coming up this month? In fact, I even did a little bit of this yesterday, just as I was in my head trying to kind of lay everything out. I had to see it to be able to figure out where things were going to fit between trips and different things that are happening over the next month. So here's where I'm going to give you a little bit more time to get out that monthly calendar. There's something about having that monthly spread so you can see the flow of things, right, from week to week and see kind of where things fit. Thanksgiving is really far down the end of the month for us, so we still have quite a bit of time before we get there. But then remembering, okay, that week Maybe things aren't going to look the same Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday like they usually do because of the week that it is, or maybe it is. And so I think that's helpful to pay attention to. So things that you want to make sure are on there. Number one, your commitments. Are there appointments that you've made, whether they're recurring ones or whether it's, kind of like a random one? Are there meetings that you need to show up to? Make sure that they are on there. Maybe it's date night. Maybe it's, having dinner with a friend. Maybe it's, meeting with a networking group or things like that. Like, are those things on there? There's something about being able to see it that helps your brain to kind of be anticipating what's coming up next. The next category are just personal events and projects. Are there things that, especially this is a month where there's might be traveling or you might have visitors and things like that with Thanksgiving. So what kinds of things are happening? Are there birthdays or anniversaries this month? This is a good time. This is why we do this not when the month has already started. We used to do this the first Monday of the month. Then I was like, we've already lost however many days. And, if this is especially wise for things like anniversaries and birthdays, sometimes it's like you turn the calendar. If it's on the first, you're like, oh, shoot, I'm already sunk, So pay attention ahead of time. Who's got something coming up that I need to, buy a gift for or, send a card or make sure I reach out and things like that. And then do you have any business events or projects that you're wanting to do this month? And here's the thing. I think we think once we get into November and December, it's like the holidays. And so there isn't time for all these things. But really, when you look at it on your calendar, like it's not that much time out of the month. So how can you still be intentional with the other time that you have? So I'm going to give us a good probably 7 minutes or so on this one to really make sure that everything, again, like I said, is out of your head and down on paper. So maybe go back to that brain dump list. What were some things I brain dumped that I'm noticing are not on my paper or on my calendar? It's helpful to get them on there so you can see how everything interacts with each other. Are there other things that I need to, pay attention to and then start thinking about what am I need to prepare for, so that things don't sneak up on me? That's the worst, right? Ah, surprise. Well, it wasn't really a surprise because I should have known that it was coming and I should have been, I could have been preparing if I had been paying attention. So we're gonna try and avoid that by making sure we're anticipating what's coming. So does that make sense? What is coming up this month? Let's put it down there. I'm gonna grab my highlighters. This process is really helpful, especially for me when I've got trips or things that are like out of the norm and things like that. To build in some buffer before and after, and then to think about how I'm taking care of some of the regular ongoing stuff before I leave, ideally. So that's what I'm kind of previewing here. Right. How are we feeling as we're seeing things kind of laid out here in front of us?
Um,
Overwhelmed? Okay. It is what it is. What were you saying,
Kind
Mary?
of a mixture. It's kind of a mixture because as I'm breaking down the things that I need to do, um, I'm seeing that there are a lot more little,
Mm,
pieces,
hmm.
but I'm seeing how they all fit together, and
Okay.
I'm feeling that I can be more prepared. So
Yeah.
it's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Okay, yeah. I think it's because what happens is when it's in our head, it becomes this one big scary thing, like that, and sometimes, it's helpful to break it down to pieces because then we can focus on just the pieces, knowing that as I do these pieces, it's leading towards this bigger thing. How many of you guys, like sometimes there's something I know I need to do and it just feels so big, I keep pushing it off because it feels really big. And then you get into it and it's like, oh, that wasn't so bad. So sometimes it's, we make it bigger in our head than it is, or sometimes we make it smaller in our head. So this is a good process to
Yeah. It's
put.
almost, it reminds me of, on the computer when you click a drop down menu. It's like this is the
Mm-hmm.
thing, then these are all the little things under
Sure,
underneath it.
sure. Yeah, yeah. And this is why we do this work now before we get into the month, because if I can, either take care of all this at once, kind of in the beginning towards the month, or break it down into chunks throughout the month, then it makes it not so overwhelming when it's in crisis mode because it has to happen in that mode in that time. So yeah, yeah. I'm curious of those of you guys who are on live tonight, how many of you are hosting in some way, shape, or form for Thanksgiving, and how many of you are either traveling or going somewhere else, and so you're not necessarily holding all the pieces, but maybe some of them.
Probably hosting on a small scale and not traveling.
Okay, okay. Dog sitting, hanging out with the pooches, right? Yeah. Is this the one where you're going down to Florida or someplace fun, or no? It's around here. Okay, okay. Sometimes she goes really
Yeah.
fun places to dog sit, so. Yeah, yeah. We're hosting and we've got quite a few people that are coming between kids and my parents and things like that. So it'll be fun though. It'll be good. I've learned to kind of just enjoy the process and not overdo it. So that's good. That's good. All right. Well, the last one on here is our pace, right? And here's where the episode that I just recorded for next Monday is going to come in so valuable because we need to build in margin, right? We need to have space. And I defined, you guys will get the sneak peek because it's fresh in my mind. The definition of margin is the space between our load and our limits, right?
Mm.
But how often are our load and our limits on top of each other or smashing, the load is smashing the limits, down to the ground and we're like, trying to bear up under all of it. And yet this is the whole reason why we need to have margin. And one of the stories I share in there is this African proverb about, this explorer who's going through the African jungle and he brings a bunch of, natives with him to help with the vegetation and help him navigate. And so, I mean, they're working their way through, and whenever they come to a river, they find the shortest crossing, and whenever they come to a mountain, they get up at the fastest they can, and or a hill probably. And anyway, they're all about like how can we push forward, like at all costs, we are going forward. Nothing's going to stop us. They've got these big machetes, they're cutting down vegetation. And he notices, like, just a couple of hours into the excursion, these guys all sit down and take a break. And he's like, why are you guys taking a break? Like, you've been, are you tired already? We've only been going for a couple of hours. And apparently they had quite a ways to go. And they said, no, we're just giving space for our souls to catch up with our bodies. And I was like, don't we need that, right? Like, I need some time for my soul to catch up with my body, right? And my mind. And, we're like, in bodily form in front of a screen or in a chair or whatever, but our brain and our soul are like, in a whole bunch of different directions. And so,
Mm.
yeah, so building in margin is going to be really key and something that we're going to be really intentional about in the planner and things like that. So here's our question for tonight. First, direction, decide to slow down. Decide that even though it's Thanksgiving this month, even though this month holds whatever it is, for me, it's 2 trips plus 2 sets of visitors, plus hosting Thanksgiving, plus launching a planner, plus leading women's Bible study, plus helping my husband who just had surgery, plus who knows whatever else. So, guess what? I get to decide ahead of time that I'm going to slow the pace of my body, mind, and soul. So, what is it you're going to do intentionally to slow your body, to slow your mind, to slow your soul? So I'll give you a minute to think of my challenge to you is to think of one thing for each category because I think we need all three of them. But don't feel bad if you only have two or one at this point. That's okay. This paper, we're not so this is not a done process. Hopefully, this is a paper that sits out on your desk or your counter and you can continue to come back to it as you think of things. Have you guys found nothing slows down on its own? It takes us
Yeah.
intentionally, yeah, because the world around us just keeps going faster and faster and, wants to sweep us up in the same whirlwind or whatever. So, yeah, what will you do to slow down this month, regardless of what it holds? How are you going to slow down? What's one thing you're going to do?
More reading
Reading? Yeah.
or audible books, one or the other.
Yeah. I love that.
I'm going to, I practiced, found this. Okay, let me start over. I'm going to sit quietly for about 5 minutes every day.
Mm,
This really, you did a lot towards, I guess, the beginning of this year about social media and
hmm
taking breaks from your phone. And I've gotten better at work about that. But yesterday I went somewhere with my daughter and she needed to run into her office to get something and I was sitting in the car and of course I pulled out my phone and
mm,
I was going to listen to a podcast to tell you the truth. I wasn't probably going to listen to your podcast, but I thought, oh my goodness, I'd left it at home and I hate to wait
mm,
and I don't like to waste time. I didn't really have a choice there. So she was probably gone 8 minutes, and it was kind of a little uncomfortable.
mm,
But I thought, this is good for me. This is good for me because I'm just constant, like you said, I'm just constantly shoving things into my. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do to try to quiet my mind.
mm, mm. But I'm curious, Mary, when in your day are you intentionally going to do it? You may have those moments that show up that, you don't have your phone, but for you, is that going to be most effective in the beginning of your day, the middle of your day, towards the end of your day? Like, where do you feel like, or maybe you try different times of day?
I think I'll have to try different times of the day, probably sometime during the day because I'm very intentional about, my quiet time in the morning, my morning refill.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Probably sometime during the day.
Mm, yeah, 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 yeah. I love that. Sometimes we just need that space to just, yeah, get outside, right? Be not in front of a screen or connected to, our hands doing something, or vice versa. Like if you're working a lot with your mind, I mean, this is one of the things, like if you work with your mind, then you should rest with your hands, even though it may not be like laying on the couch. And if you work with your hands, then oftentimes how you rest is with your mind because it's just helping your body and your brain to be doing something in a different way than what it's used to doing. So,
Good idea. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's amazing how hard that actually is.
yeah. Because you're naturally bent in one way or what?
Yeah, I mean, just being still.
Mm,
I don't think I've ever been still. Even
Yeah.
as a child, it was like, nope, you know,
yeah.
unless I'm asleep. Mm-mm. And I find it difficult to just sit and like they um when I worked with Lynn and she said, well, just meditate. Nope.
Like,
My mind just goes. I'm like,
yep,
okay,
yep.
I'm trying. No,
Yeah, yeah. And that's okay, right? Maybe that's when you grab out a journal and write down the things that are coming into your mind or find something to do with your hands. Because sometimes it's like you gotta, if you're doing something here, that it helps your mind to not focus on the fact of what it's supposed to be doing. So, yeah, it's a knowing yourself and how you respond. So, I love that. I
I
love that.
like that concept, Lissa. I never heard that before, that if you work a lot with your mind, then you should do the opposite and do physical for a balance, I guess. So that's something for me to think about. I wrote for the soul section journaling.
Mm,
Journaling I find is a great activity to slow down your pace and really hear from God. So journaling was what I wrote down as something I can do for that slowing of my pace.
yeah, I love that. I love that. I know one for me, and my morning time for sure is a staple, but it's getting in that afternoon walk when my husband gets home from work and it's still light out, hopefully for a while. And it gets the dogs out, and even though there are a bazillion things on my list that I could be doing or whatever, it's just like, nope, I need to be out and get some fresh air and move my body and do those things, and that's really just refueling for me and things like that. So yes. Well, good. Well, we've got a month ahead of us. Are there any specific things that we can be praying for you in this next month, as you're thinking ahead about what life or business or ministry or work holds? What, some things are coming up over this next month or things like that. Anything specific we can be praying for?
My 501(c)(3) designation.
Okay. Are you just
The
waiting on
IRS
that? You've
was,
done your part and waiting on someone else, or what's?
yep. I called them yesterday, day before, sat on hold for 30 minutes waiting for them to get to me, only to be told, we have 191 days. We'll get to it. That's 5 months. So I may hear from them in January.
Okay. Okay. So this is
So,
like one of the questions on the CEO Daily meeting is what am I letting go of today, or what am I trusting God with today? Yeah, and sometimes that's like the stuff I want to grab onto, like like this, right? So yeah, that you'll be
yep.
patient in the waiting, and so it will get in the right person's hands, that it doesn't take forever, but you'll have the
Yeah.
patience. Time. Love it. Thank you. Anyone else? Anything specific we can pray for?
I would appreciate prayer for what we talked about in the very beginning to recognize the gain, the
Mm,
gains and
mm,
not to
mm.
focus on the gap, which I
Sure.
think really
Yeah.
does have a lot to do with taking your thoughts captive.
I was just going to say, I feel like the enemy would love us to be looking at the gap, right? Because then it keeps us spiraling in, self-doubt and self-judgment and shoulda, woulda, couldas, or trying to make up for some, feeling behind or whatever. So yeah, yeah, I love that. It's a great perspective.
What about you, Lisa?
Well, like you heard, there's a lot going on this month. So whoop, why do I have an alarm? Oh, I know. I'm like, why is my alarm going off? It's reminding me of I'm taking some medication right now, for something, so it has to be certain times of the day. Um, I mean, I think there's just a lot of back end stuff with the planner right now, and it, is somewhere between the printer and here, and I don't know exactly where that is and exactly when it's going to be here. And so trusting the Lord with the timing of that, and yeah, and just how all of that is going to work out. Just with, logistics as they are, but also my husband now has an immobile shoulder. So I said to him the other day, I'm like, oh, so when that giant shipment arrives, you're not going to be unloading the truck for me. We're going to have to, have somebody else here and things like that. So and we have a trip right in the middle of the month. So whether it comes while we're gone or not, I don't know. So there's just a lot of things I can't control right now. So yeah, just be praying for that and just praying that this gets in the right, in the hands of those who are ready to really shift things. And I'm excited about what it can do. And yeah, hope that we get rid of them the first round really fast. And that would be a good problem to have, of having to order the second round. So yeah, just trusting God with that. So yeah, and our daughter-in-law and our son are coming to visit us this weekend. So they're expecting in April. So it's the first time we will have seen them since they've announced that. And so yeah, just looking forward to some time with them and getting to connect with them. They live really far away, so we don't see them very often. So yeah. Nadine, anything specific for you? I know you've got your summit this week, so you're praying about that this morning.
Yeah, nothing specific for November. Just God's overall guidance and direction. It's
Yeah,
always needed.
always use that, right? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, let me pray over us and then know that we can be praying for each other over this month and things like that. So, Lord, thank you for this time. Thank you for this month that you've given us and that we're still finishing. Help us to not be so forward looking into the next one that we're missing what is still here in front of us in October. Help us to be present to what you've called us to in the here and now with an eye towards what's coming next. And as I just think about heading into the Thanksgiving season, I just think about the attitude of having this grateful expectation that we are thankful for what it is that you have done and who you are and what you've given us and where you've put us, and also expectant about what's coming next. And so help us to hold those things in that proper tension and balance. Lord, thank you for just these ladies who are here tonight. Lord, I just pray that you'll give Nikki peace as she waits for the outcome of her 501(c). Just pray that it will get in the right hands and that it will be in a timely manner and that she will just have the patience to trust it in your hands as she waits. I pray for Mary that you will just help her to see the gain, no matter how big or small it is, and to not believe the lies of the enemy that she's not doing enough or that she's not enough or that there's something, yeah, just something else that is a reflection back on her that's not true. And I just pray that you will show her where the gain is and show her that it's by your hand, that even those small gains are happening and not by her own. Just pray for Nadine and just for the summit she has going on this week. Thank you for the opportunity that is. And just pray that you will give discernment as she looks towards what's coming up in the next month and makes CEO decisions and looks at ways that she's spending time and what the fruit of it is. I pray that you will help her to see what she needs to see so that she can do what she needs to do. And just pray for the planners and all the back end stuff that is happening right now, that you'll be over that whole process, and that more importantly, that as women hear about this, that their hearts and calendars will be changed by it, and that they will be walking even more closely with you as they trust you with their time. So thank you for what you're going to do in this next month and for the ways in which you're going to show us that you are with us and that you are our righteous right hand. So thank you for that reminder. And yeah, open our eyes to see and our ears to hear how you are at work around us. So we thank you in advance for what you're going to do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, ladies. Well, thanks for being here. As always, I love hanging out inside in the Redeem Her Time community. So be sure to hang out there and share wins and CEO praises and prayer requests or questions and things like that as you're going throughout your month. And we should probably make this decision right now while you guys are on here. So our typical fashion would be the last Monday of the month would put this that Monday of Thanksgiving week. So is that doable? For you, for those of you who want to be a part of this, to do it that week. The other option would be probably because I'll be in Florida for a conference the week before, so it would have to be like into December if we push it off, which isn't the end of the world because the first is on a Sunday, so it would be the second if we do that. So let's vote between November 25th, so the Monday of Thanksgiving week, and December 2nd. What would be your vote if you were choosing between those two dates?
This is fine with
November.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Nikki, what did you say?
November 25th is fine with me.
Okay, Mary, what did you say?
November 25th, but I'm flexible.
Okay, okay. Nadine, do you have a vote?
November 25th.
Okay, then it's unanimous. It's November 25th. And then we'll be ready as we head into the last month of the year. So, yes, I don't know for sure if planners will be in hands by then, but maybe they might be. So, we will see. I will make sure it gets on my calendar and see you guys on that day. And that'll be a great way to spend some time celebrating, being grateful and expectant at the same time. So, all right. Well, have a great night, you guys. Thanks so much for joining me. Look
Thank
forward
Good
you.
to
night.
seeing you
Good
soon.
night.
Bye bye.
Good night.